Hi everyone, I'm Madison. Thanks for clicking on my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about my 5-star reads. I wanted to give a little disclaimer. My first clip that I took of this video got corrupted, so I'm re-recording it right now, but that's why there's like an outfit change later on. So the first genre that I have is literary fiction, and I'm going to be totally honest. My literary fiction is all Greek mythology books, so yeah. So the first book that I have is Circe by Madeline Miller. I actually read this book 2 years ago and I rated it 4 stars at the time, but I still think about the book, so to me that means it's a 5-star read. If you don't know what the book is about, it is about Circe. She is a Greek goddess, but she's actually a witch in her like magical sense, and her parents exile her for a reason you'd find out about in the book, and they exile her to this island where she is completely by herself, and you kind of just follow her through that journey. A group of mortal men come to visit her, and you see how she interacts with them in that way and what they do, and how she ends up falling in love, and that whole story. And it's so good. I love it. And I love the cover. I love like the shiny bronze. It's so pretty. The next book that I have in Madeline Miller fashion is The Song of Achilles. Total book talk book. I know a lot of people have read this and have raved about it. It deserves the raving in my opinion. This is a book about Patroclus, who is not Circe's, this book is about Patroclus, who is Achilles' lover, and it's their relationship, how they grew up together, and how everything inevitably falls apart. So yeah. The last book that I have is Piranesi by Susanna Clark. I want Susanna Clark to write more books on like Greek retellings and stuff like this. This is about the labyrinth, and it's so fascinating, and it's a modern twist to it. It's got like a bit of a mystery in it. It's so interesting. I don't want to say too much about it because it's so interesting. I'm sorry, my puppy is just upside down playing with an avocado toy. He's so cute. But yeah. Oh. All the attention right now. So the next genre that I have is romance, and I have 4 5-star reads for romance. So the first book that I have is Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. This book is set in New York, and the 2 main characters are college students, and it is a second chance romance. So you're seeing their relationship building together, and then going from there, what happened, and trying to figure that out as to why they stopped talking to each other and why it is a second chance romance. And it is so good. It's so heartbreakingly beautiful. Oh, I love this book so much. I wish I had annotated it more, but yeah. So the next book that I have is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I don't think this comes to a shock to many people. A lot of people love this book. This is a romance book, of course, about 2 authors. They write 2 completely different genres, and they are actually neighbors for the summer. And it goes through their story of how they previously knew each other, and, you know, just their relationship and stuff, but also it touches on grief and a couple of other things. And yeah, it's a really good book. Emily Henry does an amazing job, and she has beautiful writing. Highly recommend it if you have not read any books by her and you want to test her out. This is definitely the book to try. The next book that I have is also by Emily Henry, and that is Funny Story. I love this book so much. I honestly think I may prefer this book over Beach Read, but I don't know. I'd have to do a reread, honestly. This book is about Daphne, right? Hold on. You would think I would know. This book is about Daphne and Milo. Daphne is engaged to another man, and Milo is dating another girl, but then Daphne's fiance decides that he actually wants to be with Milo's girlfriend. So they break up, and Daphne and Milo end up moving in together, and it's just a story about their friendship turning into a relationship, and it again touches on, you know, dealing with all the drama from the broken engagement and a manipulative fiance. And it's such a good story. I really related to the characters, so that's why I really love the book so much, is because I could relate to them. So the last romance book that I have is Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is part of the Chestnut Spring series, and it follows Kate and Willa, and Kate is a single father, and the child in this book, his name is Luke, is so freaking cute. And Willa is his nanny for the summer. So it kind of just follows the romance from there. It is so good, and this is definitely my favorite so far from the series. I highly recommend it. On to the last genre, which is going to be fantasy. A lot of these are second or other books within series, so I'm going to try and just generalize the series. So the first book that I have is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This was the first series that actually got me back into reading. I picked up ACOTAR on a whim because I saw it on my TikTok more than one time, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a try. So grateful that I did, because it's brought me to all of these amazing books that I have now behind me and in front of me. So happy about it. I'm not gonna explain this series because if you haven't read it, you've been living under a rock, or you just don't want to read it at this point, which totally understand, it's not for everybody. But it's so good. If you've been interested in it, this is your sign to pick it up. It's so good. The second book, which is this one, is way better. In ACOTAR fashion, I'm also going to talk about A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas. This is from the same series, same universe. I love this book. I will admit, though, that this much of this book is plot. This much of this book is smut. Just saying. So do with that information what you will, but I still really love this book, and the character development in this one is so good. The next book that I have is The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien. This book, I feel like I had to give 5 stars. As somebody who is such a big fantasy reader and adores movies as well, I really wanted to read this book. I have read the rest of the Lord of the Rings series as well, and The Hobbit's my favorite. If you have not read this, I don't know if I'm going to recommend this to you. It is a book that has been translated a lot. The text is very small, the font is, and it's not the easiest book to read in the world. There is no romance. You're not going to get that. This is a full-on fantasy. So go into it with a very open mind if you are interested in reading this book. If not, just go watch the movies. They're still really good. Next book that I have is actually a second book in a duology, and that is Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. I don't know if you guys have ever watched her. Probably. Sarah Crowley loves this book especially, and I totally understand why. The duology is about a group of criminals that come together to conduct a heist, and it's just following them and their particular skills in conducting this heist. It's very interesting. It's such a good book. I enjoy the characters. There's a lot of found family elements in it, and as I said in my other video, found family is incredibly important to me, and I love found family aspects in fantasy novels especially. So all of the books that I'm going to recommend, especially for my fantasy books, are books that are already highly recommended. A lot of people have read these books, so you've definitely seen these before. So the next book that I have is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I read this book last July, I want to say, and I love this book. I remember reading it before going to work and like standing and pacing trying to finish it because I knew I had to leave, but I could not leave until I finished this book. It was so good. For people who are into romantasy or fantasy romance, this leans more romantasy than fantasy romance. My definition of that is when it's romantasy, it is heavy romance with fantasy elements in it, which is what this is, versus a fantasy romance where it is definitely a fantasy book, but there's also a romance plot in the book. This is romantasy through and through. It is a rivals to lovers. It is about 2 journalists. There's a war going on, and they're both trying to touch on the topic of the war. and there are gods involved. It is so good. If you have not read it, please do. I know in my last video I mentioned that the second book in the series wasn't as good, and I think it's because it leaned more fantasy romance. There was not that much romance in that one, and I think that's why it disappointed a lot of people, but it's still a really amazing duology, and this is still a 5-star for me. Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I will talk about it again and again and again. I love that she does romantasy so well. Honestly, yeah, romantasy. This is definitely romantasy. I was gonna try and give it a fantasy romance, but it's not. It has so much tension. If you know me, you know I love tension in a book. I love a slow burn. I love the enemies to lovers. And the enemies is just doing so good for me right now. I love this book. I cannot wait for Reckless to come out. This book is about a girl who has no powers, hence the title Powerless, and the male main character, the MMC, is a guy with all the powers. And this is in a world that if you don't have powers, you get killed. And he is the one that gets to do the killing. But there is a trial that goes on for the elites, or the people with powers that are in high standing, and somehow she gets chosen to do this because she's been hiding the fact that she does not have any powers. And then her and the male main love interest start to show some tension, and it's so good. So read it. Just read it. Next book that I have is The Ballad of Never After by Stephanie Garber. This is so good. It's so fantastical. The story is so whimsical. I don't even know how to explain this book. I think Haley Pham does a really good job of explaining this series and explaining the Caraval world in general. I thoroughly love this book. Jax is such an interesting character. Evangeline, she's ditzy, but she's not ditzy. Like the character development for her as well throughout this trilogy is so good. Their romance, you never know what truly is going to happen. It has you on your toes the whole time. And it's funny because the first book, you're like, I didn't love it, but I also didn't want to put it down. And then you get to this one, and you're like, I love it, and I can't put it down. And then the next book, some people had differing opinions. I really enjoyed the last one, but this was my 5-star out of that trilogy. The last book that I have, everybody's talked about, Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I'm not going to talk about Iron Flame. That's for another video. This book, on the other hand, though, was a 5-star read for me. I ate this up, wanted everything. I want all the books after reading this one. The ending, yes, love it. I love that you need to go back through the book and see all of the hints that she was foreshadowing in it. It's so good. If you have not read this book, and you have no idea what it's about, this is set in a war college, and it is about a female main character named Violet, who is seemingly weak and tiny, and her mom is the general of the college and is forcing her to become a member of the Riders Quadrant. And the Riders Quadrant means that they are going to ride dragons, because this is a dragon riding college as well. And this kind of just follows her journey of trying to defy the odds and become a dragon rider because of how tiny she is. It's just iterated a lot, that's why I'm highlighting it. But the male main character in this book is Xaden. He is hot as hell and a bad boy, essentially. And it's hot, it's good, it gets the job done. The story itself is actually interesting though, besides the romance that's in it. I wouldn't need the romance, honestly, to keep reading this book because I want to know what happens. So yeah, but this is definitely falling in the fantasy romance genre. And that is my last 5-star read for this video. Okay, getting on to the series very quickly, because I've kind of touched on these already. The first one is the ACOTAR series. I've already showed you the other 2 books that are in the series. Like I said, this was the series that got me back into reading. It holds a special place in my heart, so it is absolutely a 5-star series for me, and I adore it so much. The next series that I have is the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy. I know I did not mention this in my 5 stars because I actually did not rate any of these a 5-star, but the series overall for me is definitely a 5-star. Take a shot every time I say 5-star. And it is so good. I don't know how to explain it. I have been very attached to this world, and because of that I have continued on with this world with Throne of the Fallen, and the next book that's actually coming out is Throne of Secrets in November. Don't quote me on that. I don't know when it's actually coming out. But I love this world, and I love all the characters in this world, and I want to learn more about them. So it's a 5-star for me. The last one that I have, I literally just talked about, which would be the Fourth Wing series. I know it is not a completed series, but both of these books were so good, even though I was disappointed in Iron Flame, and it was such a long-ass book. I still really liked it, and I'm really looking forward to see where the rest of the series actually goes. So for now, it is sitting at a 5-star for me, and I know I'm gonna buy the next book because I want to know what happens so bad. And that is all of my 5-star reads for today's video. I know if you look on my Goodreads, I have some books on there that I did not mention in here. That is because I do not consider those books 5 stars anymore. I just haven't changed the rating on Goodreads. I probably won't change the rating on Goodreads because I just don't care to. But these are the 5-star books that I still agree with the rating for, and definitely would suggest for everybody else. Thank you guys for clicking on my video, and I will see you in the next one.